Are you debating whether or not to live on the East Coast or the Midwest of the United States? A lot of cities that come into these conversations are Baltimore, Maryland, and Chicago, Illinois. On the surface, they do share some similarities like historic homes and architecture, passionate sports fans, and diverse cultures. But when you start comparing cost of living, housing, and lifestyle, these cities couldn't be more different. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down real numbers, real lifestyle differences so that you can be educated on what it really feels like to live in each one of these cities and know which one suits your budget and your lifestyle better. Hi, I'm Persia. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Baltimore metro region. Welcome to Baltimore Inside Out, where I don't just show you homes, but I also show you the lifestyle that comes along with them. If you're planning on making a move to Maryland, make sure to tap the bell for notifications and to hit the subscribe button so that you never miss one of my weekly videos. And if you're already on the search for a property in Baltimore or anywhere in Maryland, my contact information is pinned in the description box below, so please make sure to reach out, and my team and I would love to help you and your family make a smooth transition to Maryland. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with cost of living because that's the real deal and usually what people ask for the most. According to cost of living indexes, Baltimore is approximately 10 to 15% more affordable than Chicago, Illinois. Now, that amount might not sound huge, but when you start adding up the cost of housing, groceries, utilities, taxes, all of that stuff, it really can make a difference. Everyday expenses are cheaper in Baltimore. You'll find grocery prices and restaurant prices in Baltimore are about 5 to 10% cheaper than in Chicago, Illinois. For example, a dinner out in Chicago, Illinois can cost you anywhere from $25 to $30 for a dinner out, whereas in Baltimore, you can easily find something for $20. Let's talk about transportation. Chicago, Illinois has a much more extensive transportation system than Baltimore does. I talk all the time about public transportation in Baltimore and how it's not as robust as some of the major cities on the East Coast or even in the Midwest like Chicago. But monthly expenses like CTA passes in Chicago for Chicago Transit are somewhere between $75 to $80. In Baltimore, the light rail and metro are much cheaper than those costs. They also are smaller. They are not as robust as I just mentioned. So a lot of Baltimoreans actually end up relying on their own personal vehicles, which depending on which way you slice it, that could be cheaper if you have a paid off car, or it could actually be more expensive. And what I have found is that Baltimore cost, particularly the cost of car insurance, is astronomical. And this really goes back to the fact that there are more accidents in Baltimore than other jurisdictions. I've talked in many of my videos about how driving in Baltimore is dangerous and a hazard, but also there have been a lot of property thefts when it comes to vehicles. People are breaking into cars and they're stealing them. And so I think that both of those things, the likelihood of accidents as well as likelihood of a stolen vehicle, causes car insurance to be very, very expensive compared to other locales. Chicago has one of the highest sales taxes in the country, sitting at around 10%, while in Maryland it is just 6%. So that is something that's important to note. Maryland also has state income taxes, which is something to keep in mind. So depending on your salary, making up for state income taxes with the sales tax might cause things to balance out a little bit. So something to keep in mind as well. So when it comes to cost of living, if keeping your expenses low is important, Baltimore has the slight edge over Chicago when it comes to that category. Next up, we have housing, which is the category that really shows the difference between these two cities. One of the things I have talked about so much on this channel about Baltimore City is how affordable its housing costs are. When you take into account all properties in Baltimore, including the lowest priced properties to the highest priced properties, you're coming out at a median home price in the mid $200,000 range, which is pretty affordable when you look at the national average and when you look at Maryland's average itself. Median home values in Chicago, again, from lowest to highest, is about $350,000. So when you think about it, you are definitely saving money if you were to purchase a home in Baltimore versus in Chicago. All right, let's compare the types of homes in these two locations. Baltimore is known for its historic, charming row houses. There is a lot of diversity in terms of architecture. In Baltimore, you can find row houses, condominiums, you can find single-family detached houses. So there is a lot of variety and things to choose from in Baltimore. In Chicago, you'll find condos, you'll find high-rises in the downtown area, and you'll find detached single-family homes in the Chicago suburbs. All right, let's talk about the suburbs, the areas outside of Chicago and outside of Baltimore, Maryland. Chicago suburbs like Naperville or Oak Park are absolutely stunning, but they're also pricey. Baltimore has suburbs that are more affordable, such as Towson or Ellicott City, where you will get the amazing suburban feel at a lower cost than you might in the Chicago suburbs. What about if you're not looking to buy and you just want to rent something in either one of these metro areas? Baltimore wins once again when it comes to affordability for rent. A one-bedroom apartment averages right around $1,400 a month in Baltimore, whereas if you are looking for a one-bedroom apartment in Chicago, you're going to be paying closer to $1,800 to $2,000 in rent. If you're looking to buy or rent on a tighter budget, Baltimore gives you more house and more space for less money than Chicago, Illinois does. There are also big differences between Chicago and Baltimore when it comes to lifestyle. Chicago is a true big city with a skyline, a bustling downtown, and a fast-paced lifestyle. It's home to world-class theaters, Broadway, it's home to sports teams like the Bulls, Bears, and the Cubs. Baltimore is a smaller city, which allows it to feel more intimate. You still have lots of things to do. You still have beloved sports teams like the Ravens and the Orioles, but because it's smaller, it has a little bit of a more relaxed pace of life, and it's also a bit easier to make friends and to build community. Food culture is a big part of both of these cities, with Chicago being known for its deep dish pizza and also its Chicago-style hot dogs, whereas if you know anything about Baltimore and about Maryland, you know that it's all about Old Bay, crabs, seafood, which is a huge part of the food culture in Maryland. All right, let's talk about commutes and traffic. Chicago commuting can be a little bit brutal with long train rides, lots of traffic. I will say, if you are working in downtown Baltimore and you live in Baltimore, in the area, it's easier to get from place to place because it's a smaller town. You also have access to Washington, D.C., which opens up possibilities for work. But I will say commuting isn't a pleasure if you are driving from Baltimore to DC either way, or DC to Baltimore. That can be a headache. So I would say in terms of commuting, both might be equal, with Baltimore maybe having the slight edge because it's a smaller place to navigate. All right, one of the big things about lifestyle differences with these two cities is the weather. This one is huge. Chicago, because of its location in the Midwest and on one of the Great Lakes, gets really, really cold. You can experience harsh winters, sub-zero temperatures, lots of snow, lots of wind. I mean, Chicago, after all, is called the Windy City. Baltimore winters get cold and sometimes there are snowstorms. I think in 2009 we had our biggest snowstorm ever, which was Snowmageddon, and I remember that very vividly. Was digging out of that for days. But in general, we have much milder winters than Chicago, and they're, much more manageable. In the summers, we do have a lot of heat and humidity, which is something to keep in mind. But weather-wise, I think I'll take a Baltimore winter over a Chicago winter. I'm a summer girl anyway, so winters are hard for me, so I'll stick with Baltimore. So overall for lifestyle, if you are craving a more buzzing metropolis, I think that Chicago delivers. But if you're wanting a town that is a little bit smaller, more tighter knit, easier to build community, and a little bit more quirky, I would say Baltimore is your best bet. Okay, let's quickly touch on jobs because obviously that makes a big impact if you are moving to a new area. Chicago has a larger, more diverse economy with sectors in healthcare, tech. It is corporate headquarters for many different corporations, and finance is another big industry in this area. Baltimore's economy leans heavily on education, biotech, healthcare, and government jobs thanks to its proximity to Washington, D.C. Salaries in Chicago tend to be higher, but the higher cost of living eats up more of your paycheck. Baltimore's lower salaries stretch further thanks to lower housing costs and lower cost of living in general. So let's recap. Baltimore is overall cheaper, especially for grocery, transportation, and sales tax. When it comes to housing, Baltimore wins if you are looking for more space for less money. Chicago has more variety, but at a cost. When it comes to lifestyle, Chicago is more fast-paced and global, whereas Baltimore is more historic, smaller, and slower paced. When it comes to jobs, Chicago has more corporate opportunities, whereas Baltimore has more opportunities in healthcare, education, and in the government. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what matters most to you and your family. Big city hustle and higher cost in Chicago, or affordability and East Coast charm in Baltimore. If you're thinking about making a move to Baltimore and are deciding which neighborhood fits your lifestyle and your budget, please reach out. My contact information is pinned below. My team and I would absolutely love to help you to find the perfect place for you in Baltimore or in Maryland in general. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos about Baltimore living, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!